was an issue. And the other thing that was a major issue was what was my issue, which was my credentials were not valued by anybody else. And even though I'd had them evaluated, and clearly they were at least equal by these professional evaluators, they were not acceptable. So clerks in job access centres, you know, would just say, sorry, no. So became clear then that sending people to job access centres was a black hole, wasn't going to work. So that we needed then, whoever was going to do, thank you, sister. Tell you, the sisters give me many's a thump, and I learned a lot, but they also gave me gave me candy. Thank you. And I remember the candy, not the thumps, because I earned them. So how do you what do you do with that? So at that time, I had a child in Boston and a child in Chicago, and in Boston one day, I just thought, I wanted the city of Boston to do anything about this. I kind of became, it wasn't totally obsessed by it, but it kept going around in my head, this is America, this is 2000, we have an internet. What the heck is wrong that we can't get this information and we can't do something with this? I wonder if Boston doing anything. And I walked into City Hall, and sure enough, Mayor's Office for New Bostonians. And I asked if I could go up, and they did, sitting right next door to the mayor's office. A nice message there. Access. What's important to the mayor? And I spent a day, actually I spent 2 or 3 days there, but I kept going back, and I looked at what they did, and they were very generous in sharing their information, and they were doing really interesting work. They were not doing jobs, but were doing a whole lot of work around business development. And what Menino did, he had Fidelity Investments. Peter Lynch had just retired at this time, and New England Investments, and whoever these other big guys were. And he reached out to them and asked them to form a committee where they would work with these immigrant entrepreneurs and help them navigate their way through financing and setting up businesses and business development plans, etc. And then, and they also, in the early 90s, were dealing with out-migration. They had something like close to 50% of out-migration from the city. And they looked at their demographics, which were going down, their tax base goes down. Your demographics go down, your tax base goes down. That's a problem for city services and for all kinds of things. And they got together with the president of Harvard and with the CEO of Citizens Bank, which I don't think was Citizens Bank at the time. I forget what it was. But they put together this plan to help immigrant entrepreneurs and to get businesses going. And they did a really good job. And out of that came, other immigrants came in, and they had, by the year 2000, Boston's population, they had gone back up to their population of the 1960s when they were at their height. And their tax base had increased, and they had all of these success stories about these immigrant businesses. So that was very impressive to me. And so we went from there to trying to put together a plan that would work in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is its own kind of place, and some things work there and some things don't. And so what was going to happen in Boston wasn't going to happen at all in Philadelphia at that time. It could happen now because Mayor Nutter is really into this and very supportive of our work and of the work of wanting to bring in an increase. He wants 75,000 more people in the city in the next couple of years. But at our time, when I'm talking to you, we spoke to, I mean, I went around, I talked to business leaders, I talked to decision makers, I talked to politicians. I discovered that although everybody knew that immigration was highly regarded for its importance in building cities and small towns prior to 1920, currently immigrants were seen as unskilled, generally black or brown, unskilled and here to take something from us. And I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. Immigrants come here at enormous personal and emotional expense to make things better, to get jobs, to participate in this American dream. Everybody thinks, you know, the streets are paved with gold. You come here and you find that's not the case. But what the streets are paved with is opportunity. An opportunity that doesn't exist in many of the countries of origin of the people who are coming into the city. And so we had data that showed that immigration fuels economic development, that it acts as a catalyst for international trade and investment, and it also enriches our cultural landscape in enormous ways. We had data that supported this, but yet it was seen in the boardrooms when you talked about immigrants. I mean, this was pretty funny. I'd be sitting on the 30th floor of Liberty's Tower talking to some major business leader and say, well, what do you think? You're all about foreign direct investment and you're all really interested in international trade. Do you think that the immigrants should just wire in their money to you? And they'd look at me, but you know, it's not immigration. It's about trade. Well, if it's foreign trade, is there any connection between the person who has the money? What would you call him if you met him on the street? Would you classify him as, you know, or would you say he's just an American? No, you wouldn't. You'd say he's an immigrant. He's foreign-born. He's a businessman. So we fought that battle. I mean, people would say to me, you're not an immigrant. No. Well, that's interesting. But my fellow board member, who was born and reared of Indian parents or of Korean parents in the city of Philadelphia, they were immigrants. But I wasn't. Now, Philadelphia has a large African-American population. And what we saw on our commercial corridors that were decaying was that the immigrants were coming in. And these were neighborhoods that were probably 90% or 80 to 90%. The residents were African-American, highly marginalized communities, under-resourced significantly, poor access to goods and services, immigrants coming in and opening businesses and working, you know, and providing some of these goods and services and fixing up buildings that had been abandoned or certainly decaying. But that it brought with it also a great deal of tension and of sometimes downright hostility and often crime. So how to start that conversation that I felt strongly needed to be started, because it's an issue of respect. You know, who among us would like to live for a lifetime in a community and then look up one day and see a whole lot of people who don't look like you, who you can't speak to, you can't communicate with, and they're opening businesses in your place, and some of these businesses are seen as nuisance businesses, and they are, in that they open too late, and that they provide beer, and you know, and that there are too many of them perhaps on this corridor. So I felt strongly that we needed to reach out to the African American community, and we started with the black clergy.